Okay, amazing. Thank you. Welcome. Thank you very much. Think about if you had a larger group, it would be bigger. It wouldn't be as fun, you know? Sorry. No, it's good. It's great. Okay. Speaking of great, so imagine you had a bucket and you're on page 79A at the first line. Imagine both those happen at the same time. You had a bucket and there wasn't a hole in the bucket, but the bucket contained, it was impure. I knew you were gonna do that. I knew you were gonna do that. And there's a hole in the bucket. And, no, there was no hole in the bucket. It was impure, and it was filled with the mix of ashes and water that is special sprinkling on somebody who is impure, came in contact with the corpse. So now you have to go and purify your bucket. Now, usually when you purify things in water, so if it's water itself, it's called hashaka. The mere touching of the water will purify it. But by this, it's different. By the mechatas, by the ashes in the water, it's different. It's too important. That's not going to work. So what do you need? You have to have rove. You have to have majority of the water to go inside. So we showed you that this brisa tells us that to purify this bucket, as long as you have a majority of water goes into the vessel, that's going to be fine. You don't have to view it as if it was something else. Now, the problem was there was a contradiction to Rabbi Yehuda. So that we said, lo kasha, hadidei, hadirabe. Rabbi Yehuda himself, when you have two things of the same species, Rabbi Yehuda himself will be okay with the concept of rove majority, and that will be fine. Hadirabe, the other brisa that says that you view the white wine like it was red, and then how much would it dilute it, that is his Rebbe, Rabban Gamliel. The Tanya, Rabbi Yehuda Omer Mishum Rabban Gamliel, in the name of Rabban Gamliel, he says, Ein dam mevatel dam. Blood can't nullify blood. Ein rok mevatel rok. Ein mei raglaim mevatlin mei raglaim. He says these things, the blood can't nullify blood. Spit can't nullify spit. If you had urine. And urine can't nullify urine. You have all the three things that are impure and three things that are pure. They don't nullify each other. Even if you have a majority, it still won't do. You always have to view it if it was something else, and then see what would happen. But just having a majority is not going to do it. So that's the opinion of Rabban Gamliel. That's one answer. Rava Amar Vidlish v'sochotar v'gabo tamei askinan. You had the case of the bucket really is where the inside of the bucket is pure. The outside of the bucket, the rim of the bucket, that's impure. So really, the Medina Sagi Lebakoldu, all you have to do is just dip the little rim of the bucket in, and that you're good to go. So why they have to dump the whole bucket in and dunk the whole bucket in to purify it? Rabbanahu de Gazerbu. Rabbis made a decree. Dilmachai Salahu below Mavatale. We're worried if you have a bucket full of this special purification liquid and it's sealed and the top of the bucket needs a purification, you're going to have a little bit of compassion on your bucket because you don't want to ruin the purification water inside. And then you might not do a good job and purify the top of the bucket. The cave and the Ika and since that's true, that's our word, the cave and Ika Ribuya low sorry. So therefore they said no, you have to do the whole bucket, but all you have to do is have a majority of water go in. That's all. So you don't have to view it as if it was something else. So maybe Rabbi Yehuda really does view hold of this rule called viewing, Rowan. When you have two things of the same species, you don't just say majority nullifies. Rather, you'll say viewing, view it as if it was something else that's more strict, and then see what would happen in that case. In this case, since it's already a rabbinic stringency, then just majority is enough, and that's it. Okay, so that's the two answers of Rabbi Yehuda, and they basically both argue, does he agree to this opinion called Rowan, which Rowan viewing was when you have two things of the same species, you just say majority will nullify, or are you extra stringent? Rashi explained yesterday that you're extra stringent because you don't want to treat these matters so lightly and just fine with the majority. Rather, you'll say no, view it one of them as if it was a different species and see what would happen in that case. That's an extra stringency. So, two opinions: does Rabbi Yehuda yes hold of that or not hold of that? Fine. Amar Rava, Amar Rabbanan. Also a more well-known statement in terms of the laws of mixtures. Amar Rabbanan first the headline and then the explanation. Amar Rabbanan b'taimav, Amar Rabbanan b'rubav, Amar Rabbanan b'chazusa. The rabbi said by taste, the rabbi said by majority, the rabbi said by appearance. What does that mean? Min b'she'eno mino, when you have a species mixed with not its kind, a different kind. You don't have two waters mixed. You can have whatever. I don't know. You can have meat and milk, meat and milk. So min b'she'eno mino, two different species. Then you go after betaima. It depends on the taste, right? So this is you put the cheese in, the cheese falls into your cholent, you take the cheese out. We're worried about a transfer of taste, right? So then we don't just say, oh, there's a majority. Yeah, you're right. There might be 5 drops of milk in your cholent, so there's definitely majority cholent. But the problem is if it was really strong milk. So now if the cholent's going to taste dairy, then no one's going to come back to the kiddush or sponsor. That's going to make John Cyber very upset. So, but more. As importantly, so it's going to be as important is going to be that you have to discern the taste. So fine, that's if you have a species mixed in a different species. If you have a species mixed into its own, so let's say you have not kosher milk and non-kosher milk. You have 2 meats got mixed together. You're not sure now. Oh my gosh, the non-kosher cholent or the kosher cholent. I don't remember. And now it's mixed in my cholent pot. So there, you can't discern the taste. We do believe there's a transfer of taste. You just can't discern it because it's the same thing. So then you can't say, "Oh, just taste it." What do you mean you can't discern the taste? So min b'mino, there you go after the majority. Beruba, so not like we said before. We don't view. It sounds like according to Rabbi, we don't say row, and we view 2 things of the same species like it was a different species. No, you just go after the majority, and that's it. So heicha the ika chazusa. When it comes to things of appearances, like any of these liquids, where we care less about the majority, we care about the appearance. I mean, you can have a majority of water, but if it still retains the redness of blood, you will throw it onto the altar. There, it goes bimar. That's what it says. It goes how you view it. If it retains its identity, its color, so then even if it's not the majority, it doesn't matter. So it'll either not be nullified or be nullified. Okay. So that's that. Now, okay, so that's like, I guess, really a period. Earlier, in the beginning of yesterday, we had Reish Lakish. Reish Lakish said that if you have these pigul, nosar, tameh, those 3 things that you're chewing, right? And let's say you're chewing 2 of them, and they got mixed together. So there, the Gemara said, conclude from Reish Lakish that prohibitions could nullify each other. And you could have some pigul go into a piece of nosar, and something that's impure, a piece of pigul can go into the impure piece, right? Right. We had a case where you have 2 pieces in your mouth, and then you have so one contains now 1.2%, other only has 0.8. So one of the 3 conclusions of that story was prohibitions do nullify each other. That is a debate. Upligi the Rabbi Elazar. Rabbi Elazar said, the Amar Rabbi Elazar, kisheim she'ein mitzvos mevatel zu azu. Just like mitzvahs can't mevatel each other. I think that's a big discussion at the end of the second Zevachim. We'll see a fraction of it coming up. But just like mitzvahs can't nullify each other, so too, kach ein isur mevatel zu azu. Interesting thing. Prohibitions don't nullify each other either. So therefore, in that case, when you have a pigul and nosar and tameh, impure, leftover, prohibited sacrificial meat, or you have or you have something which is impure, and you'd be chewing them, we don't say that one has the power to nullify another one. So, okay. So now, what's the idea of the mitzvos not nullifying each other? What does that mean? Who ever heard of this thing that mitzvahs don't nullify each other? That's Hillel. It's an interesting thing. The Tanya, right? The Pesach Seder, the Tanya, Amru Lav al Hillel Hazaken, right? Hillel Hazaken, what he used to do, Hayu Korchan, right? We say Zecher LeHillel, Bevas Achas. He would put them all together, he would wrap them all together. The Ochlan, why would he do that? Mishum Shenemar, it says, Al Matzos Umrorim Yochluhu. You have to eat the matzah and the maror and the you have to eat it together. Okay, so what does that do with us? Rashi explains that we're not worried that the sharp taste of the maror is going to nullify the bland taste of the matzah. Because mitzvahs can't nullify each other. Even if you have maror being super sharp and the matzah is super bland, at the end of the day, mitzvahs don't nullify each other. Now, on this, you could ask, maybe really mitzvahs do nullify each other, but here the Torah says not that way. Here the Torah says no matter what happens, it's always going to be considered matzah and maror. So maybe it's not a proof in general. Okay. Either way, that's just like prohibitions can't nullify each other, just like mitzvahs can't nullify each other, so too prohibitions can't nullify each other either. Okay. Turn the page. Taner Rabbanan says the Brisa, Charson shel zav is zava. So you're basically a someone who is impure by being a zav or zava, special emission, and now they sat on a piece of they went to the bathroom and they urinated and a piece of earthenware fell off, and we assume that earthenware was touched by their urine and now it becomes impure. So now what do you do? So Pam Rishon V'Sheni Tameh. If you pour in water, it's still going to be impure. Meaning, once something goes into a vessel, so now inside the vessel, it's called the blius. It contains it absorbs the taste. In this case, not a taste, it's urine, but it absorbs the impurity. So how do you get it out? So right now we're saying if you wash it twice, it's not going to get it out. Shlishi, after putting water a third time, you could assume that what happened, the impurity came out of the vessel into the water, and then it becomes nullified in the water. Now, B'medvar Mora, what's the case? Shenas l'socho mayim. That's only if you put water inside. Avalo nasan l'socho mayim. If you didn't put water, but rather, let's say, a pure person urinated, and they want the pure urine to remove the impure urine, that's a filu asiri tameh. Even if a pure person urinates 10 times onto that vessel, which has impure urine of a zav or a zava, that's not going to help. Why? It's because we're going to see that the same species doesn't nullify each other. So if urine trying to nullify urine, that's not going to work according to this opinion. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov Omer Shishi Afal Pishlo Nasal Sochamayim Tahor. He says the third time, even urine will remove. 3 times will remove the what do you call it? Will remove the impurity, the impure urine. And if it gets mixed together now with pure urine, even though those are 2 species mixed together, but he holds 2 species could nullify each other. So who's that opinion that says the same species? The Tanakama, the first opinion in this brisa, that says that the same species do not nullify each other. Who is that? Rabbi Yehuda. That's the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, that the same species does not nullify each other. Now, what we need is once we've established that the first opinion of the brisa is Rabbi Yehuda, so that first part of the brisa told us 2 things. 3 times with water does remove, 10 times with urine it does not remove. So that 3 times with water is now going to be challenged. Viraminhu, Hishtan, so you have flax. Shetavasa nida, a lady who's a nida was spun flax. Thank you. So now the flax is moist, and therefore, in general, it's moist. So, right. So yes, exactly. We're worried that the nida saliva is on the flax. So now, misito tahor. If you moved it, so you're pure. However, in the hayalach, but if the flax was still moist from the saliva, exactly. So then mesito tamet. So then someone who moves it, carries it, no? Okay. So he moves it, is going to be impure. Fine. Mishum mashkepia, because of the saliva that comes out of her mouth. So that's the first opinion. If it's wet, it's going to cause impurity, and if it's dry, it will not. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Av harotvo b'mayim tamei, mishum mashkepia afilu tuva. Sounds like even if you put water onto the saliva to nullify it, even a lot of water will not purify the saliva on the flax. Question is, we just told you if you do water 3 times on a vessel that has impure urine, it does remove it. So why not a lot of water on the saliva on the flax? Amara Papa, shiny roke, the courier. Roke, spit is different because it's courier because it's very thick, right? I believe it's very, very thick. So, no, sorry. Courier is that it penetrates. It penetrates a lot, and therefore it's hard to get out. However, the urine on the earthenware vessel, that doesn't penetrate so deeply into the vessel, and therefore it's not so hard. It's much easier to get out. Even 3 times will get it. Okay. So now we go back to our Mishnah, to the end of the Mishnah. The end of the Mishnah said that if you have blood mixed together with pure blood with invalid blood, the first opinion says you have to spill it out in a special channel where you spill out the blood. If it got mixed together with the blood of not the blood of the life, not the life blood, but the damatamtis, the remainder of the blood. So the first opinion says you got to pour it out. It's no good. Rabbi Eliezer says it is good. So it sounds like both cases, if good blood to be thrown onto the altar got mixed with invalid blood, or it got mixed with the non-life blood, the remainder of the blood, not the one that spurted out originally when you killed the animal, but the remainder of the blood, both of those, the first opinion says you have to pour it down the channel. And Rabbi Eliezer says, he says that no, you don't have to pour it down the channel, you can apply it. And then the end of the Mishnah said, of course, if you do it, it's still going to be valid, even according to the first opinion. Okay, so what is this debate about? So it says the Gemara in Nisare, Nisare b'dam psul nishavek la'ama. What is their dispute about? Amar Zvid begozin gzeira mikdash kamiflagi. They're arguing about did they make this decree in the temple or not? The Mar Savar Gozrin, Umar Savar Lo Gozrin. So meaning Rashi explains that they have a general dispute. Are you going to make decrees regarding sacrifices as a to distance you from doing something wrong? What's the problem? If you do it though, you're going to cause things to have a loss. Meaning you have blood now mixed with blood, right? So let's say you have a majority of kosher blood. You should apply the blood onto the altar. So the question is, though, are you going to make a decree to distance yourself from any violation, even though it's going to come at an expense? So by making this decree, let's say, so you're going to prevent people know that if you mix it up with other blood, you're not going to be able to apply it. They're going to be extra careful to not mix it up. But on the other hand, in the event that it's really a good mixture, meaning you have more kosher blood, if you're not going to allow it, you're going to be losing out. You're going to be losing out atonement. You're going to be losing out applications. So do you make a decree which might cause a loss or not? That's going to be their debate. So in both of these cases, it's still not going to be good, even if you have more kosher blood, more blood that you can apply on the altars. Let's say you have 80% blood that should be applied, and 20% is going to be invalid blood, or not the blood of the life, but the other blood. So you still don't, according to the first opinion, you're not going to put on the altar. You're going to build down the channel. So why do they say this? So Rashi explains a little bit more. In the event that you have majority of good blood, we're going to make a decree because we're worried when you have the opposite case. So you have 2 cases, 80% good blood, 20% invalid blood. Case 1. Case 2, 80% invalid blood, 20% good blood. So what are you going to do? We're going to make a decree that even with 80% good blood, if there's 20% of invalid blood mixed in, you can't put it on the altar because we're worried in the other case, when there's 80% of invalid blood and 20% of valid blood, you're going to put that onto the altar, and the guy's going to think that he had an atonement, but he never got an atonement. So that's a debate. Do you do that? Because now we're going to be worried. In the event that's 80% good blood, you're losing out. Yeah, but you're saving the other case. So do you make that decree or not? That's their debate. So according to Rav Zvit, Mar Savar Gozrin and Mar Savar Lo Gozrin. That's Rav Zvit. Rav Papa says, I'm a Gozrin. Everyone agrees really you would make decrees like this to spare oneself from making a mistake. However, the Hacha Bedama Tamsis Matsui L'Rabos Al Dama Nefesh Kamiflagi. Here they debate about something else. They debate about about when you have more it's the non-lifeblood, the blood that gets drained out after the initial cutting of the animal. That initial blood that spurts out is what we need. The other blood is called the damatamtis, the remainder blood maybe. So the haka b'damatamtis matsui l'rabos al dama nefesh kamiflagi mar savar shchiach or mar savar lo shchiach. Here's the question: often what happens? There is a lot more of the remnant blood more than there is the lifeblood. So we're worried that if they got mixed together, there could be that there's more remnant blood. In general, that lifeblood that spurts out is very little compared to the rest of the blood in the animal. How much is that lifeblood that spurts out? 5%, 10%. I mean, it's not so much. The initial cutting. So there's so much more leftover blood. So now when you have a mixture of lifeblood and remnant blood, so now they have a decree. One opinion says, well, listen, it's very common that you have always more remnant blood. Well, in this case, too, it's probably more remnant blood. Therefore, you can't offer it up. And the other one says, Mar Savar no. Mar Savar lo shchiach. That's not as common. And therefore, we don't have to worry about that over here. And therefore, they're not going to make a decree. 1 second. Meaning, of course, there's more remnant blood than there is lifeblood. But the question is, when they get mixed together, how common is that? So in that case, they argue like he said it is common. He said it's not so common. If it's not so common, you won't make a decree. If it's common, then you will make a decree. Yeah. Okay. Right. The first opinion says it's common enough that we're gonna make a decree because we're gonna be worried that it does happen sometimes. So maybe this is one of those times. If this is one of those times, then we have to make a decree. But they don't argue about the other case. So in the mission, instead of in the mission, there's two cases: kosher blood and invalid blood. Then it brings a second case, and it says lifeblood mixed with remnant blood. And both of those cases, the Mishnah says, pour it down the channel. Rabbi Eliezer says that you could bring it up. So the question is, in the setup of the Mishnah, why do you set it up this way? According to Rav Papa, you only argue about one of the cases, the second case. You don't argue about the first case. So you should split it up. So that's the next part of the Gemara. Just go back to the format of the Mishnah and see if it fits. So, Bishlama l'Rav Papa, Hainu dikatanis arvidamat psulin yishafek la'ama, v'damatamtis yishafek la'ama. According to Rav Papa, it's very good because according to Rav Papa, you have two cases, and only on case 2, Rabbi Eliezer argues. The first case was kosher blood and invalid blood. Second case was life blood and remnant blood. After the Mishnah finished teaching the second case, Rabbi Eliezer says, I argue, and I say you could put up on the altar. So you'll say, he'll argue on the second case. The first, he doesn't argue. According to Rav Papa, that's a good format of the Mishnah. And then Rabbi Eliezer argues. But Elul Rav Zvid, according to Zvid, Rabbi Eliezer argues in both cases, so then you should make that clear. You should write it clear. Invalid blood and kosher blood, first opinion says you can't offer it up, you got to spill it out. Rabbi Eliezer says offer it up. Second case, life blood, remnant blood, first opinion holds, spill it out. Rabbi Eliezer holds, you can offer it up. But that's not how it's taught. So according to him, Elul Rav Zvid la'arvinu, but listen to Kasha, you're right. The format of the Mishnah is difficult for Rav Zvid. Now, it's not a knockout because whenever you have two statements and then a third statement, you can always ask yourself, does it go on B or it goes on A? Oftentimes it does go on A. So you're asking it should have taught it better. Okay, you're right, it should have taught it better. Okay, it's a problem, but it's not. We're not going to do a tiyufta, a knockout because of that, just because of the formatting. Fine. Okay, that is that. Dam tamimim, but dam balimum. You have blood of a non-blemished animal, a whole animal. Bidam balimum, mixed with the blood of a animal that has a blemish. And we had a very similar case by the limbs. We're going to see the Gemara is going to compare those two. So, what's the halacha? Yishafech la'ama. The first opinion says the blood is not good. You got to pour it down the channel. Okay. Kos bikosos. If one of the cups of blood got mixed with another cup, if I guess a cup of pure animal blood got that cup got mixed with a cup of wounded animal blood, blemished animal blood. So now, Rabbi Eliezer Omer im kared kosach yikrubu kol kosos. Also very reminiscent of Rabbi Eliezer's opinion in general. If one of the cups gets brought up, you can assume that was one that was invalid. You can bring up the rest of the cup. Yikrubu kol kosos. The Chachamim Omrim, no. Afilu kared kulan chutz me'echad. Even if you brought all the cups up except for one, you assume that the one remaining is the prohibited one. So, therefore, what do? You shafech la'ama, you spill it out in the channel. Okay. Now, that's the second mixture. Third mixture. Hanitonin lamata shenis arba beniton lamala. You have offerings that have to be applied below the red line that get mixed with offerings that have to be applied above the red line. So, what do? Rabbi Eliezer Omer yitain lamala. You apply the whole thing above the red line, and there's blood that's supposed to be applied below. He'll say, you're going to view the blood that might be the blood of below the red line. It's now being applied above the red line. So don't view it as blood of a sacrificial offering. Rather view it like it's like water. So don't view it as blood of the offering, and therefore now it's going to be invalid because it's applied above and not below. Rather, you're just treating that as water. You don't treat it like water. You treat it like water. So then, I'm bothered by it. You can't. I don't think you can just put water on the altar. But I guess it's saying that the blood still has sanctity to it, but don't view it as you're applying it for the purpose of the sacrifice. Rather, view it like it's water, and therefore you're good to go. And then what do? The yagzer v'yitin lamata. And then the remaining blood, you'll go and you'll apply it under the red line. That is Rabbi Eliezer. No, they don't view this viewing method, and therefore they have to pour the whole thing down the drain. Yeah. Okay. The imlo nimla not kosher. If they didn't ask the Kohen what to do and they just did it, it will be kosher. Because if you apply it above, so then at the end of the day you did apply things above, and that's fine. At least for those. I don't think the bottom is going to be fine though.
Seems like you can trace certain expressions. Here, like the red line, 3 is better than 2. The other one. Anyway, there seems like a lot of funny.
That what?
That's like modern terms.
That what? Oh,
the red line. You draw a red line.
Oh, you draw a red line. Yeah.
Thing for you.
Maybe they got it from us.
Yeah.
So, but if you didn't ask and you did it anyways, so then the parts above are going to be good, and then you're going to have to do again the other blood below. That's right. So now, what happens if blood that needs one application gets mixed up? So you have the same different offerings that both require one application. For example, a bechor gets mixed with a meiser, with a 10th animal, and a bechor animal, that blood gets mixed together. They both require one application. What do? So you nanu b'matana achas. So you apply it once. Okay? And we'll see how that's going to work for both of them. We're assuming, and this is going to be a big discussion, when you have two liquids, do they mix together or no? Is it like oil and water, they don't mix? We're assuming that they do mix. If it's mixed together, So then you assume that in one application that contains both. Yeah, that's our going assumption right now. One application can suffice for both. Matan arba b'matan arba. If you have offerings that require 4 applications, like an Ola offering and a Shlama offering and an Asham offering, they require 4 applications, right? 2 that are 4. So either 2 means you have to 2 that are 4 means you have to do it 4 times, or if you do it that it goes on the 2 sides, and that's so you get 4. Either way, what do? Nothing b'matana arba. You apply 4, and hopefully, and you apply 4, and therefore it'll cover, since it's mixed together, the different offerings, it'll account for both. Matan arba b'matana achas. If you have an offering that has 4 applications, like a shlamim, the blood of that offering is mixed together with, let's say, a bechor's blood. So now what do? Do you do 4? Do you do 1? How does it work? Rabbi Eliezer Omer, yinatnu b'matan arba. You do 4. You do 4, and you're going to view. So if you do 4, so that means that the shlamim or the asham is good, and the other ones that require 1 application, you'll view it like it's just water. That's Rabbi Eliezer consistently holds that. Rabbi Yeshua argues and says, no, yinatnu b'matana achas. You do 1 application. You can't do more. So now, Rabbi Eliezer holds you have to do 4, and Rabbi Yeshua says you have to do 1. And each one won't budge. You can't do the other one. Either 4 or 1. Why? Amar lo Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Eliezer says to him, Harehu over al bal tigra. If you do less than 4, then you have violated the biblical prohibition of bal tigra, means do not detract. You can't detract from Hashem's mitzvahs. Amar le Rabbi Yeshua, Harehu over al bal tosef. Rabbi Yeshua goes the other way. If you do more than 1 application, you're violating the prohibition of don't add to the Torah. You can't put in 5 parshas in your tefillin. That's not going to work. So each one holds that you're violating the other one. Amar le Rabbi Eliezer. So Rabbi Eliezer says he requires 4. So he says, no, lo namar bal tosef ela kishu ba'atzmo. That bal tosef is only when it's on its own. When it's mixed together, that prohibition doesn't apply. In this case, you have a 4 application mixed with 1 application. There it doesn't apply.
I get you there. I just did 1 application 4 times instead of 4 applications.
That's interesting. Rabbi Yeshua the other way. Lo namar bal tigra ela kishu ba'atzmo. Says Rabbi Yeshua that you have to do. It's not called detracting unless it's on its own. It's mixed together. It's not called detracting. So that's their first debate. Did you violate bal tigra or did you violate bal tosef? It sounds like opposite extremes. Usually we like to merge them somewhere close to the middle and make opposite. So that's what it says. Mm-hmm. Now, the Od Amar Rabbi Yeshua is going to hold that you're only allowed to do 1 application because you might be adding to the Torah. You might be giving a bechor 2 applications. That's invalid. That's a violation. But Od Amar Rabbi Yeshua, Kishinasata Avarta Bal Tosef. If you add more than 1, you violated Bal Tosef. The Asisa Maisa Biyotcha. And you did an act with your hands. Sounds like it's like, I don't know, what is it? Like twice as bad. First of all, you violated Bal Tosef. And second of all, you did action with your hands. However, Kishalona Sata, if you don't put 4, and you only put 1 like me, so Avarta Bal Tigra, okay, so you've only violated Bal Tigra. I didn't do any positive action with my hands. I just didn't apply. So now the problem is that Rabbi Yeshua stays very strong that you cannot apply 4. You only have to apply 1. The applying 4 is a violation of increasing to the Torah. Rabbi Eliezer says you can't decrease. So this line of Rabbi Yeshua is interesting because he says, listen, it sounds like what he's saying is, at the end of the day, I'm staying passive than being active. You're actively adding 2nd, 3rd, 4th application. That's with your hands. At the end of the day, what am I doing? I'm detracting from the Torah, but I'm not doing it actively. I'm only doing it passively. But it's hard to imagine Rabbi Yeshua really holds that you violate that because he just said a second ago that that according to him, the problem is baltosif, adding, not detracting. So either, and they have to figure out what that means. Either what he's saying is, even according to you, Rabbi Yeshua, I'm still the better of the two. Even if I'll agree to you that you're right, that detracting is a problem, it's still the worst of the two evils. And it's like often like voting for somebody. No one's good, but who's the worst? Who's the better of the two evils? So Rabbi Yeshua says, I'm better of the two evils because I'm not adding. I'm just doing one. You're adding two, adding three, adding four. That's positively violating the Torah. That's right. That's right. So, okay, so that's the long mission. Says the Gemara, once again, in the very beginning of the Mishnah, we said that if the cups get mixed together, if they get mixed together, so then if one of them gets offered up, you can offer up the rest of them because you can assume that the one that got offered up is the one that's invalid. So we had this earlier. Rabbi Lazar, lo hiksher Eliezer, elishnayim shnayim. That only works when you offer 2 cups at a time, not 1 cup at a time, because there's interesting logic that according to Rabbi Eliezer, each one that gets removed might be the invalid one. When you have 2 cups now, one of them is for sure valid. So since it's only a rabbinic decree, it's only a rabbinic stringency, since one is valid, you can assume that the other one's valid too. So, yeah. So, okay. Now, same question as we really had before. Say, even if all the cups get brought up except for one of the cups, you got to spill it down the drain. To which Rabbi Eliezer would argue, it says, no, you can bring that. He says, no, you can bring it up. Now you can bring in 1 cup. But didn't Rabbi Lazar explain Rabbi Eliezer? He only allows you to bring up 2 cups, not 1 cup. But the same as before, when it said 1, it doesn't mean 1 cup, it means 1 pair. 1 pair means 2 cups. Only Rabbi Yaakov, Rabbi Yirmiyah, Bar Tachlifa, Asavrlach, Mai Echad Zug. Mai Echad Zug Echad. What does it mean 1 was remaining? It means 1 pair was remaining. And on that, Rabbi Eliezer says, Rabbi Lazar will say, for Rabbi Eliezer, you can still bring it up. It's a pair. It's not an individual. Now, why do you have to have, so why do you have to have now both cases of the limbs after the blood application? We had a Mishnah earlier that the limbs were mixed together, blemished limbs and kosher limbs, and you have the blood, kosher blood and blemished blood mixed together. Why do you have to have both of those teachings in a Mishnah? Isn't it repetitive? Maybe only when you already had the atonement. Rabbi Eliezer says, if one of them was brought up, so then no. 1 second. Only then will Rabbi Eliezer say, since you already had an atonement, that you're good to go. You don't have to spill it out. Yeah. However, aval beha, where it's before the blood was applied, ema modilhu l'rabbanan. Maybe here he would agree to the rabbanan because we're talking about if someone's about to get atoned for. So there will be more stringent. That's what you would have thought. To which he says, no, even in the case where he has not had atonement yet, you still could apply it onto the altar. If you only had this argument over here before the blood has been applied. So then beha kami rabbanan. That's what the rabbis say before the blood is applied. We're going to be extra stringent, and we're not going to let you apply it on the altar. You're going to spill it out in the channel. Aval beha, over there where the blood application already happened, and it's just the limbs remaining got mixed together, and you want to know which ones you put up on the altar? Can you put up on the altar or not? So there, since the atonement happened already, you would have thought the Rabbi Eliezer, you would have thought that in that case they will agree to Rabbi Eliezer that you could offer it up. Suricha, you have to teach it that in both cases, whether limbs got mixed together with kosher limbs, blemish and kosher limbs, or good blood and blemished blood got mixed together. There's a debate in both cases. Rabbi Eliezer will say you offer it up, and the Chachamim will say you cannot offer it up. Time is it? 45. It's gonna be like a brand new section. That's gonna have a lot of details. So we'll call it here.